Good morning. We're breaking into programming because happening now, the New Orleans Police Department is about to give an update on their investigation into two separate shootings that killed 2 and injured 10 on Sunday. That mass shooting happening in the St. Roch neighborhood during the 9 Second Line when thousands of families and children gathered to celebrate our city's culture. Let's go live now to NOPD headquarters for that update from NOPD Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick.
After they speak, I will allow one question, beginning on my left and ending on my right. And just to remind you, we're staying on topic, everything concerning mass shooting. Go ahead, Chief.
Right. So, good morning. Before I begin, I want to begin with extending condolences to the family who have lost loved ones from this shooting last night. You know, we are all here collectively as a city to speak. Our presence here is intended to, first and foremost, let you know that we are working together as a city, as a community, to stop this violence. And so, collectively, from the mayor's office, from the city council, from the community, we are very sorry for the loss of 2 lives that occurred last night. So we can confirm that we had a total of 13 individuals who were casualties from this shooting. We shared last night, and again, we'll confirm this morning, that we had 2 different incidences. There were 2 shootings 45 minutes apart from one another. We are actively working this case. We do have leads, and we will find the perpetrators. You will be held accountable. We have worked with our local partners, with the state police, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. All of them also provided last night extra staffing for us. Last night we had approximately 100 New Orleans Police Department officers on the scene. They were working this particular second line, and yet the tragedy still occurred. This particular second line drew thousands of people, and as I have shared, second lines is a part of our culture here in New Orleans. I have embraced every single one of the cultures of this agency or this city. There is a wonderful culture. Second lines are a wonderful culture of this city and will continue to be so. But we have got to work together with the community to prevent any potential for violence in our second lines. I want to remind everyone that though we had this terrible event, and it has now pushed our murder number to 119 deaths this year. These are our murders. But 2 years ago today, we were at 238 murders. Just last year, as of this period of time, we had 192. Every single one of those numbers represents a person. This is not just a statistic, but New Orleans has made great strides in reducing death and violence in this city, and we will continue to do so. You're soon going to hear from our Crime Stoppers Executive Director, but before she speaks, I want to urge anyone who has information that if you do not feel comfortable calling the department itself, you do have an alternative mean, which is through Crime Stoppers. We don't need your name. What we need is your information. And therefore, call 504-822-1111. And again, when Ms. Costanza comes to the podium, we also offer money, Crime Stoppers money, for people who have information that prevent the crime before it happens. It's not just an after-event situation. We want your information to help us prevent an act of violence, and that is something Ms. Costanza can further express for us. So with that right now, I would like to bring to the podium our representative from the City Council, Councilmember Eugene Green. Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Chief, and good morning. This is a sad day, but I do want to put things into perspective. There's nothing like having been there on yesterday. I was at the second line. It's part of the culture. It's part of my district. We have multiple second lines that take place throughout the district. We've even had second lines recently for a deceased broadcaster, Eric Paulson, for a deceased musician, Frankie Beverly, and we didn't have incidents at those. So I want to say to the public that I don't want to generalize relative to second lines. Second lines are a very important part of our culture, and they are mostly safe. We have maybe 25 second lines that might take place in 2025, and even more. I might be down on the numbers. I do want to say that I was there also, and I want to make it clear that the New Orleans Police Department was well represented before the second line, during, and then even following the second line, and along the parade route, there was sufficient police coverage. I say that to say that sometimes there are instances where there are people who are so bent on violence, bent on taking out their aggressions, people who hate themselves, people who hate other human beings, that they're going to do what they have to do no matter what's around them. And we see that, unfortunately, that happens in other instances too. We've seen that in other shootings and other killings, but in also just the way sometimes people treat other people. I want to make it clear that as a city council and as an, as an administration, we all recognize the value of having a police presence that makes a tremendous difference. But I just want to emphasize to everyone here to not generalize relative to an activity, and just recognize that we must do everything that we can to make the full weight of the criminal justice system come down on the individual or individuals who are found to have committed this crime. I know that the New Orleans Police Department is going to conduct a thorough and motivated and constitutionally sound investigation. I'm calling on, of course, the district attorney or the state of Louisiana who might ever do the prosecution to recognize that there are families who are hurting right now and that they deserve justice. It's important for me to express condolences to the family members of those who lost their loved ones in such a fashion on yesterday, and express my support and best recovery wishes for those who were injured. But the bottom line is that as a city, the numbers are not going to be changed by this activity. Violent crime is down because our community, working with our law enforcement community, has said that we are not going to continue to tolerate the rates of crime that we've had and the incidents that we've had. This does not change that. We are still a city that is amongst the highest in terms of percentage of decreases in violent crime in the nation, and that's going to continue because we are well represented by members of the New Orleans Police Department, the law enforcement community, which includes the prosecutorial side and also the investigative side. Federal, state, and local are still working together. I just want to emphasize that because we must continue to do the work that enhances public safety in our city. I do want to also say that as a city, we do have a good amount of cooperation between federal, state, and local authorities, but it's also the citizens. If you know something, and there were a lot of phones being used on yesterday, there are a lot of people who saw what happened. You can feel comfortable knowing that there is support for you as a witness or as a victim that is going to treat you with the ultimate respect and provide for your safety. Let us know what you saw. Call it in. You'll hear a Crime Stoppers number. Call that number in, but know how important it is to us. I also want to mention to the victims that there are victim support organizations that exist in our city that don't get a lot of attention. But for example, on Wednesday at 5 o'clock, they're going to be meeting at the sheriff's office, and I encourage anyone who is victimized by this and other crimes to take advantage of those resources. But once again, I close by saying that our city is moving in the right direction. This is a terrible setback relative to the families that experience violence in this particular event, but second lines and our culture are important in our city. This is the 26th 9 times second line in our city, and I'm looking forward to the 27th and more. Thank you.
Councilmember Thomas, please.
Thank you. To the chief and the other law enforcement officials, elected officials, pastors, the media. First, our hearts and prayers go out. First, our hearts and our prayers go out to the families and the victims and the families of the victims. There are a couple points that I want to make that are extremely important. I was out of town, flying into town, and my daughter texted me to ask me to go to the second line with her because she knows every year, as someone who grew up in the 9th Ward, I usually walk out with 9 times when they're coming out. I'm not out there just as a spectator, but as a participant in the culture. Former king of Buck Jumpers, past king of the Treme Sidewalk Steppers. So the culture is a really, really big part of our city. And my wife and I last night were talking about the economic development aspect of it, how the men and women of these second-line organizations, right, spend so much money. They prepare usually the year before. So for Oscar and the members of the group, thank you guys for upholding our tradition, a tradition that I participate in, a tradition that I was raised in. And what we usually know is that the people who perpetrate this type of violence, usually they have no relationship or no association with the culture or with the people involved in the club. So let's not blame them. The last thing, the second thing that I want to say is that we can't celebrate NOPD and the crime reduction efforts and strategies that's been going on and then question their ability to solve crime. So 51 way, so we believe in what Chief Kirkpatrick has done and we believe in what the commanders have done, but then we're going to send out a message that we don't have the faith that the department, especially in line with success, can't handle this or not on top of this. Man, it's just, to me, it's just unfortunate, right? Because right in the middle of celebrating what an undermanned force has done and the impact that they've had on leading the nation in many serious categories, there are people questioning and calling for help from agencies that don't have an investigative unit, don't have a homicide unit, don't have any experience in dealing with what the men and women in the homicide division and in this department deal with every day. That's why much of my disdain for politics really kind of happens in terms of when you look at what people will do and what they will say. I have a lot of faith in this department. I have a lot of faith in what they've done, and I have a lot of faith in what they will continue to do. And I'm a New Orleans boy to the bone, unapologetically. Our culture community, the community that oppose the traditions and the culture, that's why we got 20 million visitors before COVID. So anyone trying to disparage them or knock the culture, then you don't really understand New Orleans.
Darlene.
From Crime Stoppers, I mean, there's several points that I'd like to kind of reiterate. First off, I'm very sorry for those who have been involved, who have been victimized, particularly those who have lost their lives. And what I'm calling upon the community to do is just as we've heard, this is such an important part of our being New Orleans. And when someone decides to take out their anger, whatever it is, to foolishly shoot into a crowd of innocent folks having a great time, then no one who was there should stay silent. And I say that because Crime Stoppers has not received a lot of tips on this. And we know there were a lot of folks out there with cell phones. We know there were people there who saw what happened. You need to send the information in. Law enforcement needs your help. And if we say stay silent, we're condoning this. We should never condone this. Now for Crime Stoppers, we've had a record number of tips come in this year. So that talks to the fact that the community's there. They're willing to be part of the team. They're trying to be as proactive as they can be. If you ever hear of something, like the chief said, that can prevent an issue and we can validate that, you can earn a reward. But more importantly, take on the mantle of being the hero that you're preventing an issue. Now, in this case, we need you to help us solve this for all of the victims, for all of those who are out there who are now traumatized by what happened. You need to solve this. Now, Crime Stoppers has already told you come through anonymously. You don't have to give your name. There's nothing that we're going to do to identify you. It's safe. But if you need an extra little push to do that, this is a mass shooting because there was more than one victim. So Crime Stoppers is offering a $5,000 reward for both instances. That's $5,000 cash. Give us the information so that we can law enforcement can make the arrest, hold those accountable for causing this chaos, and if you need to, you can earn a little cash. Thank you.
Pastor Johnson.
Good morning. My name is Pastor Jacques Williams, and I serve as a violence interrupter under the leadership of Chief Ann Kirkpatrick. One of my responsibilities is to see to it that whenever situations like this occur, that we get out ahead and in front of it to the point where we decrease the possibility of retaliation. One thing that we know often occurs is whenever there's violence that interrupts on this level, there are others who are impacted, and there's too many who feel and believe as if they can get their own justice. The one thing that I need us to understand is this. First and foremost, today's New Orleans Police Department is not like it was in the past. They truly have the current concerns and the well-being of the people at heart. The one thing that I loved about Chief Ann Kirkpatrick, when I first met her, she said that she's not a police officer, she's a peace officer. And when incidents like this take place, it disturbs the peace. And whenever peace is disturbed, chaos reigns. The one thing I need everyone out there in our community to understand is this. I, too, as Councilman Oliver Thomas is, I'm a Ninth Ward, born and raised, bred individual. And we have a saying that we grew up saying and reiterating often, that we're from the 9 and we don't mind dying, but we do mind dying. The time for dying is past, and the time for living is at hand. And we have a responsibility that if we know anything pertaining to any of the incidences that took place on yesterday, it's our responsibility to actively get involved and do what's necessary to protect the peace that our peace officers, who we call police officers, have been doing a wonderful job at doing. Whether or not we know it or not, we're living in a community that's safer now, as Chief Ann Kirkpatrick gave those statistics from 2 years ago, that's safer now than it has been in a while. And that safety has been produced by a police department that is understaffed. They're overworked and they're undermanned, but yet they're doing the job of 2 and 3 men as each person is required, because they're doing and making the necessary sacrifices so that our lives can be better. Community, those who live in our communities and in our neighborhoods, listen, it is not just the police department's responsibility to protect our peace. We also play a major part and role in it. So we have to understand and undertake the responsibility of as Crime Stoppers director said, to stop being silent, to open our mouths, to speak. And even if you don't want to speak directly to the police department, there are too many other agencies and too many other avenues that you can, and people who you can speak to make sure that they get that information. And we'll take that pertinent information to the people who are responsible for caring for and bringing those who have imposed upon our peace, bring those into justice. The one thing I'll say, and I'm finished, is I'm sick and tired of the narrative remaining the same. As Councilman Thomas said, that our culture is rich, our heritage is something that needs to be protected, but we have to defuse the narrative and even the belief that going and participating in these rich heritage and cultural events could cause or bring about our demise simply because it's not safe. They were well policed, they were well protected, yet and still those who had the mindset to bring about this type of detriment still were able to produce it. So listen, don't trust the process, trust God in the midst of the process, and know that the people who have been responsible and charged with protecting us are on the job doing, and they're doing the very best that they can. But we, our general public, we have a responsibility to partake and participate in once again producing the peace and not allowing chaos to reign. Thank you.
Okay, we'll transition into questions now. We'll start over with Axios. We'll start on this side, we'll end over here one question as a reminder on topic. Axios. I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. Go ahead.
Chief, could you talk a little bit about what you do and don't know about how the incidents are related?
We don't know that they are actually related yet. We are absolutely looking at that. So, but I can't tell you that we know for a fact that they are related.
You do know that they are related.
No, we do not
You
know.
don't? Okay.
I'm sorry. We do not know that they are related. We are looking into that.
WWL.
At the first shooting, as of information from last night, there were 2 shooters. Do you know if they were shooting at each other? Were they working together to shoot into the crowd? Can you explain a little bit more about that, please?
I'm going to refer to the chief over investigations or the lieutenant over investigations. Can you answer that, Lieutenant? Okay, go ahead. Anyone who can answer the question, go ahead.
Repeat the question real quick.
In last night's report, the information that we received, there was 2 shooters at the first incident. Were they shooting at each other? Do you know if they were working together to shoot into the crowd? Can you explain a little bit more?
At this time, we're not aware of how many shooters there actually were in the incident. We're still reviewing video footage from that incident, and everything is still under investigation.
What we could tell you, and that's a qualification, we know there were 2 ballistics, 2 different weapons. That doesn't tell us it's 2 shooters, but it does tell us 2 different weapons.
Well, one thing I can tell you, because my daughter and my nieces were out there, and if I had not been back, I'd been out there, there was a level of surveillance.
Can you step to the mic, please?
One thing I can share with you, because my daughter and my nieces and my great-nieces were out there, and I would have been out there, there was a level of surveillance and talking to people from that community. There were a lot of people out there with guns and brandishing guns. So the environment for an incident to pop off with gunfire, given the reports that I'm getting from family members and others, Chief, was that there were a whole lot of people with guns, brandishing guns, on the location. And I don't know who wants that kind of America, but that's an example of some of the reporting that I'm getting, is that the crowd was full of people with weapons.
Right now, we have open carry. Can you talk about that and maybe the dangers of having everyone brandishing a gun at an event that's supposed to be a family, community, very joyful place?
Sure. And that, I've been very clear about my position on open carry versus the constitutional carry. They are 2 different issues. I have not changed my position regarding that. I speak for myself, but I think I reflect the position of our council. I know I reflect the position of our mayor on this topic. I understand constitutional carry and that why it might be okay in one part of Louisiana, but we are not all the same. You cannot say that certain parts of Louisiana reflect what is true for New Orleans. And when you have huge amounts of people who are enjoying themselves, but where you mix alcohol and all other kind of dynamics, the risk level goes up, it goes higher. And so what happened with the constitutional carry, it removed for law enforcement a way for officers used to be able to do a stop and check on a person if they could see they were carrying a weapon and check them out. Well, are you carrying it legally with a permit? That changed under the new law this summer. But that is my position in it. I am definitely a person who appreciates constitutional carry, but not in every location. And New Orleans is unique. And we have no business with guns at a parade or in our entertainment areas at all. The risks are too high.
Yeah, I believe in the right to bear arms, but you're not going to have 20,000 people gathered at a second line in DeRidder or in parts of Bossier City or in Baker, Louisiana. So it just doesn't make sense, and I'm a supporter of that constitutional amendment, but I'll say it the way we say it growing up, we differ. And if the state doesn't, the state understands we different when it comes to collecting our revenue. They need to understand we're different when it comes to our culture too.
And Chief, I'd like to applaud the police department because a couple of years ago, some arrests were made for carrying of weapons at the site. The arrests that can't be made now because of the change. So it's important to recognize that the police, the members of the police department were doing an active job at this, and they've done that at other second lines too.
I believe we did, we did get one gun last night. I do know we did get one. But think of the thousands of people who are out there. So, but anyway, next question.
You did say last night that there was a potential for violence at this event. That's why you had over 100 officers.
Right, the
There's
sign,
been run-ins or situations in past second-line events. What were those issues in the past events? And what was the potential of violence last night?
there was a significant event in the year 2018. Maybe you could speak to it. I was not here, obviously, but there was a mass shooting back in 2015.
2015.
Okay.
In 2015, and I don't know if it's related, but there was a Bunny Friend shooting during a second line where several people were shot at Bunny Friend Park.
Different organizers,
Yes.
different events.
Different.
But whenever you have that many people, we already know, because we're going to have alcohol out there. And again, you're mixing guns and alcohol, so it will always have a higher potential for violence, the potentiality of it.
Do you have a description of the suspect vehicle? You said something about a vehicle.
We do have a vehicle that will be released to you when the time is right.
GNO.
This is more of a clarifying question. You said 13 individuals, so were 11 shot and 2 were killed. And can you share any of the conditions of those who were in the hospital?
Yes, they were all in stable condition, those who received gunfire, and they are in stable condition.
Box 8.
As far as the 2 individuals that unfortunately died in
Yes.
this instance, can you tell us a little bit about them, whether they were targeted in this instance or?
Again, that's something we are looking into. We always look at leads along those lines. I do not have the information to share with you at this time.
Yeah, but we need to pray allegedly for the woman who was run over by the car doing the donuts that were out of control. We can't forget her.
Is she included in the
Is she
13
in the
people?
13?
Wait,
Hold
is
on,
she
y'all,
included in the
hold on.
13 people?
Hold on, one at a time.
You said a woman got hit by a car. Was that included in the 13 people?
Allegedly, there are photos and their accounts.
Can you step up, please? Yeah, can you come to the mic?
Allegedly, there are photos and there are accounts of a young woman who someone was doing the car wheelies and donuts, and she was run over by the car. So no one's talking about her and her family. I just wanted to make sure she and her family weren't forgotten.
So, Chief, is she included in the 13 people who were hurt last night?
No, the number we gave you were the ones associated with gunfire.
So can you clarify how that number went from 12 to 13? Did someone show up at the hospital, or was it a miscount?
Correct.
And then can you also address what all of our cameras caught last night when you were addressing us and we heard gunshots in the background?
Yes, so we did. We did hear gunshots in the background. So last night when I was giving numbers, we were aware that the numbers were fluid because we knew more and more people were showing up at the hospital, either walking in or they've been taken in a private vehicle. And so and that's whenever we give information, we try to give you the information as early as possible, but as reporters, you know that things are going to be fluid, and that's why the numbers change. It's because we don't know at the time we're giving you the information that there might be someone walking into the hospital. But as of this morning, the number is stable at this morning at 13.
Missy, I see you in the back.
Yes. Chief Kirkpatrick, so yesterday there was the first shooting that injured 9 people, and then 45 minutes there was another one. What was the thought process between that shooting and the next one, and having the second line continue after this mass shooting had already occurred?
Right. So first of all, to correct, it was 10, and we learned that were shot in the first event. None of those were fatal, okay? And so all I can tell you is that I understand culturally that the second line, because how long it was, this is what I'm being told, and it makes sense to me. The second line is so long that this end of the line is not aware of what's going on here. And that if the police shut down that second line, at this point, it can create chaos for the rest of the line not knowing what's going on. And so that is why the line was allowed to continue. But when we had fatalities, that's when the police had to shut the line down. It's a way of crowd management, being mindful. When you shut down parades, people don't know why, and it can create chaos. So that's the thinking behind it.
Chief, circling back to my question about the shooting, the gunshots that we heard on camera, can you give any details about that? I mean, could that be retaliation to what happened earlier in the day?
You know, I can't give you details beyond the fact that the gunshots were heard. I stayed on the scene a little bit further down. Do you have follow-up? This is the captain, as you know, of that district. Can you speak to it?
Somebody was just shooting. We do not have anything else on that. Nobody was injured in those incidences. But yes, there was gunfire while we were filming.
Jambalaya, see you in the room. Do you have a question?
I have a question. I'm with CBS Network News.
Yes.
I'd like to ask, first of all, the reduction in crime in the city, that's a pretty big difference versus last year. Does this have anything to do with your city's, step up in patrols with the upcoming Super Bowl event?
Yes, well, we've already been planning. We can tell you there will be hundreds and hundreds of officers during Super Bowl. And so, and with other partner agencies are going to support us, our federal partners, our local partners. But we had 100 out there last night, but I can tell you we will be having minimum 5 times that for Super Bowl. So we are taking a lot of strategies, and we will always plan for worst case scenario, right, with the best outcome. Look at Taylor Swift. I think if you saw Taylor Swift, you saw a sea of blue. You saw officers everywhere. And so if we could have provided that level of coverage for a second line, we would. We can't. So it is a matter of the ability to staff something like that.
Sure. And then any details at all just about the age, demographic, anything about the 2 people who were killed?
Yes, we do have their names. We have their age and demographics, as well as not only our 2 who have lost their life, but we have the names, the ages, demographics of all of our victims. And that will be connected. We'll provide that for you.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming out.
I didn't get my question.
I'm sorry. Is it on topic?
Yes.
Okay.
Visiting the scene this morning, there is an NOPD crime camera with the lights on right there at the telephone pole. Is that camera working, fully operational and assisting in the investigation?
Yeah, we do check all of our cameras, but we also had staff members in the real-time crime center watching those videos during the second line. So all of that video will go through, and I can't speak to what they have or they don't have. As this, develops, we'll give you that information. But yes, we had cameras everywhere.
Heading into Super Bowl, I think it's important that you guys remember and report that the Mother's Day shooting, the Bunny Friend shooting, and this incident were years apart. So I would hope that we wouldn't have, like if we have the rolling events and cultural events where they have gun showers, so you may want to check your files. None of those other events were recent.
Darlene, you had something you wanted to say?
Yes, I just want to add that we talked about calling the 822-1111 number. Well, when you go to our app or you go onto the Crime Stoppers GNO website, you can upload video, you can upload photos. Our kids who send school tips do this multiple times a day. So if you have any video, send it to us so we can pass it on, and it comes through us again anonymously. So there's no reason for you to be concerned that we're going to pull your phone's IP address. Send us what you have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You guys spoke to Mayor Cantrell about this incident, and has that been an open conversation that's been happening?
She asked, have you spoken to Mayor Cantrell about this incident? Last question.
Yeah. Mayor Cantrell was notified by me within moments after it happened. I sent her, we had a lot of communication back and forth. Yes.
All right, thank y'all for coming out. Y'all want to go ahead and exit this one?
And you've been listening to a press conference from NOPD Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick, as well as several city council members and Crime Stoppers, giving us an update on that mass shooting that happened during a second line yesterday afternoon. We just learned that there are now 13 victims. 11 are in stable condition, according to NOPD. 2 have died. We also learned that NOPD has a vehicle description. They say they will release that information at an appropriate time, but so far no arrests have been made in this case. We also want to let you know that the NOPD, really the community at large, being urged here to send in any tips they have. There is a $5,000 reward being offered for any information that could possibly lead to an arrest. We will, of course, have much more on this developing story on WDSU News at noon, but until then, I am Morgan Lentis. We hope you have a great day.